Hi there! Today I want to show you how you can make small folding wallets like the ones pictured here. Now this is based on a pattern and instructions that I sell in my Etsy shop, and these are only 3 of the 12 different kinds of wallets that you can make. I'll show you the different designs now. Now the one that I am going to make today, and I'm going to show you how to do it, is number 4. So there are a few things you can think about before making this wallet, because there are a few design things you can change if you want to. For example, as you can see here, this pocket goes on this side and this pocket goes on this side right here. So what you can do if you want to, for example, you can continue on the thread here if you want to, so that your wallet looks something like this, for example. Here you have a thread that goes along the entire sides of the wallet, and instead of making it stop here and here, for example. You can choose that yourself, it doesn't really matter, it's up to you. So just so you know, what you can think about is that. Now other than that, the first thing you need to do is cut out the pattern and place it on top of your leather. Another thing to notice, in this tutorial, I'm not going to go over in that much detail how you do the different steps in the construction of the wallet. I'll basically say what you're going to do and not really show you how. If you are more interested in seeing how I do these things, for example the burnishing and cutting tips and stuff, you can have a look at the other wallet video that I posted some time ago. It's called Minimalist Wallets. So have a look at that if you're more interested in the different steps. Here I'll just mention them and then just show you how you can do it. Okay? So first thing we're going to do is cut out this pattern and place it on top of our leather, and then cut that out. Alright. Now there isn't really that much to think about when making this wallet. There are a few tips and tricks, however, that might make it easier for you. First off, when you have the main piece, what I would suggest is that you simply mark off the corners here so that they are going to be straight, no matter if you're going to round them off or not later on. So basically just mark off the corners, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then you can just cut it off like that, right, as it is. Now, if you want the straight corners, you just keep it like that. But then later on, I think it's much easier to just round off the corners using a coin or something in the corner here. So that is just one tip when it comes to marking the main piece. Also, once you have marked the corners and rounded them off if you want to, you can use this corner as a guide on the pockets, or the pockets that are going to come on later on. So when you glue this on, keep the corners straight. Also, when it comes to the pockets, another thing that you might want to consider is that you make the sides, if possible, depends on the pattern that you use, there are 12 of them, if possible, make them longer. So don't cut them off here right away. What you want to do is when you glue this onto the main piece, you want to have as few sides as possible to line up. So then you can make them as flush as possible, basically. So of course you need to cut out the inner part of the inside pocket, and of course the outer one. If you can, then you only have one side to align, and then these two can be cut off later on. However, it depends on what kind of pattern design that you are using. So for example, in this case, I want these the inside pockets to line up as perfectly as you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this side and one of these two, because then I have 2 sides to align, and then I can cut out this piece later on. I'll show you when you get to it. If you don't understand completely, that's okay. Basically, what you want to do is keep at least 1 or 2 of these sides longer than the actual pattern describes. I'll show you how to do it. If you're unsure, watch the rest of the video and then you can decide on how you want to do it when you make your own card wallet. So here, same as before, I'm going to mark out the corners, 1, and 2. In this case also, I'm going to cut out and mark this side here and this shape because I want that to be exactly like the pattern describes. So I'm going to cut out this, align it with the holes I made here. I shouldn't have made those, I should have done that later on. And then I can just mark this and then just the corners. So be right back. Alright then, so now I line up the holes that I made before with the ones, yeah, there we go, that was perfect. Mark this final corner, and then here I want to draw the entire shape of the pocket. There we go. Just a small hole there to show the ending there as well. Now it is really simple to just cut out this in straight lines like here, and then this is the only part that I need to freehand, because the rest I can just take a ruler, align it, cut along that, so it's super simple to do. Now I'm going to cut these pieces out so that we can then talk about how to assemble this wallet. One thing that I forgot to mention before is when you mark the main piece, you really need to decide if you want the seam or the sewing to stop here as the pattern indicates, or if you want it to continue along the entire the entire main piece. So if you want it to stop here, when you mark the pattern, you should also mark out where the sewing ends. Because otherwise it's going to be, well, you can do it later on if you want to, but it is going to be easier to see where everything is going to stop and where you are going to stop gluing later on when you apply the pattern or you apply the pockets. So as long as we have that, then it's okay. So what you can also do if you want to, you can cut this out according to the cutting lines, and later on, because what we're going to do is glue everything onto this side. So either you mark it on the front and you push completely through so that you can see you have a small hole here in the back. That also works, it doesn't really matter. Or you can just take the pattern, cut it out according to the cutting lines I have in here because you have some extra paper. Place it on top of the cut out piece and then mark the sewing lines. Doesn't really matter, it's up to you, as long as you know where these are so that you know where everything is going to end, or where the glue and the sewing is going to end. Alright then, now we have the pieces cut out. As I mentioned before, what's going to happen here is that when we glue this on, it's going to be like that. Let's see, like this. When we glue this on, we only want to align as few edges as possible. So for example here, I have cut out this side and this side, but here it is a bit longer, as you can see. And this is because once this is glued and sewed on, or actually just glued, we can cut this out using this side here on the main piece as a guide. Then we basically guarantee that this is going to be completely flush. Had we cut out this according to the pattern from the beginning, then it is quite easy to make a few mistakes. For example, not completely holding the blade straight, or if it's a millimeter or half a millimeter off, then it's going to show when we have this glued on and the edges are not going to be completely flush, which is, you know, not fun. It is better to do something right the first time around. So it's going to look like this when it is completely done. And since we marked the sewing lines, we can also see where they are going to stop and where we're going to stop gluing. See, we have a small hole here, a small hole here. It's difficult to see, but they are there. There you can see it. Now, if you want to, you can design this in many different ways. For example, I thought that I wanted this pattern to be easy, because when you open the wallets like this, you have the cards and they're easy to pull out upwards like that. If you want to, You can, for example, just change this around a bit so that you have these sides to look like this, for example, if you like this shape better. For example, like I did here in this type of wallet. It's up to you. Then you want one of these pieces, and then you can just turn them around like that. Up to you completely. Then of course you need to change the sewing accordingly, but that's up to you. So what's going to happen now is that we're going to round off these corners, and then we are going to bevel and burnish this side on the pockets, because we can't do that when we have glued it onto the main piece. So cut off the corners. If you want to see how I do that before, there is a detailed instruction in the minimalist wallet video that I have on YouTube. I'm also just now going to cut them off and bevel and burnish these sides. Alright then, now the corners have been cut or rounded off and then sanded down a bit so that they are very round. Also, I have burnished these edges on both, added my maker's mark as well. Now what we're going to do now is glue this on to glue these pockets onto the main piece. What we want to do is, because we know that this is cut off this side to the proper dimensions, we're going to use that side and this as the guide to see where we are going to glue, just to double check. It should be right based on the pattern. It is. I've made many of these wallets, but sometimes, for example, in your cutting you can go down a few millimeters and that might not look too nice. So just to make sure, double check and see where the holes that you made before, if they are just right outside the edge of the pattern or the pocket. And here they are. So we'll double check the other side as well. And yeah, the hole is right where it's supposed to be. So what we can do now is we mark these again so that we see them really clearly. There we go, there are a few holes here. Now what we're going to do is apply some glue just to the side or onto the sides here, a few millimeters in, not completely close to the edge, because then that is going to show once we are going to burnish it. So 1 or 2 millimeters from the edge, and just a small or thin strand of glue around the entire side. Then we're going to push the pockets onto the side. Just be really mindful when we apply them to the glue that they are completely flush, or as flush as they can be, with this edge and that edge. Now, and then once it is all cut off or completely dried, I mean the glue, we're going to cut off this side, all of the corners, and use the main piece as a guide. Now, had this been a wallet where the sides are completely the same, both of these sides could be a bit longer, then we would only have to worry about this edge being completely flush, and then we would cut off these later on. But since we have a pocket that is different in the sides, and we want this to be in the same spot, then we can't really do that. So apply some glue, put the pockets on, apply a clamp or a book or something, let it dry. Once that is done, we are then going to cut off everything that sticks outside of the main piece, basically. Now that we have glued the pockets onto the main piece, what we're going to do is cut off everything that pokes outside of the main piece. So for example, the corners are going to be cut off using the main piece as a guide, which is going to make it more easy to get everything flush. Same here, cut everything off using the main piece as a guide. Once we have done that, we're going to mark the stitching line using a compass and then punch the stitching holes. Now, once everything is cut off, it is really starting to look like a wallet. Very nice. Now, to make the stitching line, to be more precise, what you can do if you want to is to just touch up the corners to make sure that they are completely round, because otherwise that is going to show when you mark the stitching line. Also, the details are important, so the finished product is going to look much nicer. This is a 2000 grit sandpaper. You can use a rougher one if you want to, but these corners look pretty good as they are, so they only need a quick touch-up. So do that if you want to. Then, using the holes either on the front or on the back, you can mark the stitching line. Now, what you can do is, for example, to just take the pattern and mark off so that you have the same amount of difference, or the same width between the stitching line and the edge that I have on the pattern. Now, since I'm going to punch this from the back, basically, in, that is going to make a small difference when it comes to the holes. I'm going to mark it here. So you can just align it with the holes that you made before, and run along the side and create the stitching line. So do that all the way around, and then once you've done that, you can punch the holes, the stitching holes. I'm going to use a number 4 pricking iron, which has 4 millimeters between the prongs, which I think looks pretty good when it comes to a small leather item like this. And then I'm going to sew it using 0.8 millimeter nylon thread. You can use a thinner thread if you want to, but that's up to you. So, now that the stitching holes are punched, we can now bevel and burnish all around the wallets on both sides. So, inside and out. So bevel and burnish, and after that we are going to sew it together and then break the glue inside the wallet, and then it is done. Alright, now that the edges are beveled and burnished, looking very nice, we are now going to stitch everything together. There we go. The wallet is now completely done. We have sewed it shut. I have broken the glue inside, and it is all ready to have cards go into it. There we go. Now, what you might want to do is massage the fold a bit so that it stays shut, but otherwise this will take its shape the more it's used, and in just a few days it will retain its shape just like this one. Now, as I said before, this is based on a pattern and instructions that I sell in my Etsy shop. So if you want to make a wallet like this one, or some other leather item, I have many wallets and bags and other stuff, have a look in my shop. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this wallet, and if you decided to make your own and you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Either send me a message on Etsy, my email, or maybe here on YouTube as well. So I hope you enjoyed watching me make this wallet, and have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.